Welcome to the Landco podcast. This is the year-round Waterfowl Hunter series, where we dissect the monthly activities of a successful waterfowl hunter. I'm your host and managing partner at Landco, John O'Reilly. Hey guys, welcome back to the Landco podcast. We are back at it, episode 2 with the year-round Waterfowl Hunter. Back at it with Jody Graff. Jody, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, so quick point on how we do this, like how we format it. We just go over like the 3 or 4 main things of what we're doing this month. Last month it was January. Now we're into February. Still a little slow because of the weather. Jody's a little further ahead than I am, which is kind of cool. But we're just going to go over what we did. Now it's last month because we're actually into March now. But so what we did in February in preparation for the upcoming season. So Jody sent me a list of 3 or 4 things that he's doing, as we would expect. Most or several of them are the same, but some are a little different. So let's start with what's probably the most exciting. You have projects going, like tracks on the ground.
Yeah. So in the last couple of weeks, we've seen some drier weather. It's been wet since October here in northern Missouri, and we finally caught a break. We've had some dry weather, and has allowed us to get in and start doing some dirt work. So we've got some big projects, starting with levying up a new green tree reservoir project that I'm really excited about. It's been like a year and a half in the making, and we're finally starting on the project. And so we've got a track hoe and a couple dozers. We've got a tractor and scraper running. We've had a couple of skid steers, guys with chainsaws, like getting after it. Everybody's excited to get back to work. It's been a long winter, and now we're right back in the saddle. And the hardest thing to do now is get sleep.
I know we were supposed to do this podcast at 9, and now at 9 a.m. and now we're like 9:30 p.m.
Yeah.
That's how it goes. So 2 questions about that. We never get to start. Well, I shouldn't say never, but like pretty much never get to start projects this early. Is that normal for you guys out there in Central Missouri? Do you ever start projects now?
Man, sometimes we get the opportunity with a dry winter. This hasn't been a dry winter, but like I said, my guys are chomping at the bit, to get started. And
so you're walking around down there a little bit.
Yeah. So with the soil types that we got, man, sometimes it just takes getting in and breaking the seal and working the ground a little bit. And, we mudded around the first couple of days in order to get started. After we got some of the vegetation off of the ground, and we got the leaves kind of, chewed up and got the ground opened up a little bit, everything started drying out. And as like every day we worked, it got better and better and better. We probably shouldn't have started when we did, but
you got a little excited.
But I mean, we were cleaning the tracks out of the hoe and out of the skid steer every night because it was, trying to freeze at night, and so it was a lot of extra work. Things were a little slower, but I'm glad we did. I'm glad we started when we did, because now we're able to run pretty hard.
Yeah, you're ahead of the game a little bit now.
Yeah. and like I said, sometimes it just takes breaking the ground, getting some air to it, getting some sunlight to it. And like windy days like today, I mean, wind was blowing 35 mile an hour.
Yeah.
Things got out a lot today.
I have a little clip that you sent me. Should I show it?
Yeah.
What is this? This is just like a little, looks like you got a high hoe here, pushing some timber around.
Yeah. So we're clearing off an old flood protection levee that was probably built back in the 20s.
Okay.
And anyway, it's around an old lake that is tied to the Grand River, and we're going to use this old flood protection levee as some of our infrastructure in a green tree reservoir. We're using that 4,000 foot levee to kind of section off a pool,
Right.
and we're going to tie into that levee in several spots. We're going to cut that levee down and create some spillways and put a couple water control structures in it. With the high quality timber that we have there, pin oaks and pecans, it's really important to be able to get the water off. And so we're going to install a couple of 24-inch water control
Man,
structures
they're big.
so that we can get the water off as quick as we can whenever it floods.
Yeah.
This is ground that is not flood protected, so it's tied to the Grand River. Um, and we're going to have spillways in there. So we'll have the top of the levee, and then 6 inches below that, we'll have some spillways, and a foot below that, we'll have full pool.
Okay.
And so really in the situation I'd like to have, maybe 6 inch increments. Out in the ag ground, we'd like to see 1 foot increments,
Hmm.
so full pool, a foot above that, have a spillway, and a foot above that, have your levee top. It just gives you, it helps the top of the levee dry out whenever you're at full pool, and, so you're not mucking around on top of the levee all the time. But it's really important that we get the water off of this timber in
Yeah,
order
for
to
sure.
keep it alive. I mean, that's the number one goal, is to, you know, increase the infrastructure and increase or improve the drainage to get the water off. And so we're overkill. I mean, way overbuilding the drainage on this thing. Two 24-inch water control structures to get the water off after it floods. Because if the water sits in there, it's going to silt. It's going to collect more silt,
For
and
sure.
so that's what we don't want to have happen. Um, is this property continue to silt in? Um, but that gets back to my point here. The foot between full pool and our spillways is, I, I mean, we're expecting this over the next 20 years, 30 years, 50 years to silt in some. So we're leaving ourselves a little bit of freeboard and
Right.
allowing for in the future to hold that water higher, because we expect we're going to lose a little bit of that, a little bit of the water holding capability, um, just because it's going to continue to silt
That's
in.
about what we do. We usually shoot for a foot, 6 inches if we push it. So we're about the same. But so
Mhm.
um, the green tree plots you're talking about, talk a little bit about why you do that because I'll tell you, like here in Illinois, that just doesn't happen. I mean, we are corn on corn on corn. In a bad year, we're millet. So
Uh-huh.
we don't get to do much of that. We've talked a little bit about this kind of off camera, but like as dumb it down as much as you can for us on like tell us why that works where you're at.
Diversity is king, and the more diverse habitat types that you can provide for the ducks, the the more of a variety of weather conditions, or maybe the times of the year, you're going to be able to have the habitat that they're looking for. Um, this particular spot is in between a couple of private refuges, one that we're developing, one that's been established, and so we're gonna try to shoot some ducks that are traveling back and forth between these two spots. Um,
So it'll be a kill plot for you. It's not just kind of a place for them to roost. It's a spot that you're going to get in there and hunt when they hit it.
right.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I want some footage when that's done. Actually, scratch that. I want to invite.
Yeah, right. Right. They just have to come over, man.
Okay, deal. Well, that's awesome. I'm sort of jealous about that because usually we want to get moving now here, and I like sometimes I'll hold my guys back because the stuff that we do here. Like if we're going to design a wetland or something like that, if we start and then we get rain, like we're probably worse off than if we didn't start at all. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So
Right.
like we'll build little coffer dams to help keep the water off where we're working, but in general, man, I just like, all right, let's wait until after the spring stuff,
Hmm.
after the spring rains. And we get a little behind and we're frantic, like like we all are. But um, I wish we got to start right now.
Yeah.
The only well, we're still in development mode, so like, um, and this is one of my things that we're doing now. You talking about you're actually, tracks on the ground. We're still kind of like shooting elevations to kind of perfect things. I like to
Mhm.
wait till it's like decent weather. I know you can do these all year. Um, it's just brutally cold to be out there. We've caught
Right.
a few good days, right?
Yeah.
Like you're out there in a sweatshirt and you can reshoot elevations. It's one thing to shoot them in like usually we're putting wetlands in like where there's crops, like ag fields, right? And so you can be out there in the corn and the like an idiot or the beans with your little laser stick, but until the crops are down, you can't get a perfect sense of where that's going to be.
Right.
So we're out doing it again. Well, I was out there yesterday. Like you said, I didn't know it was going to be like 40-mile-per-hour winds, so it wasn't perfect. But that's what we're doing. So where you're like tracks, and you're probably still developing some, or not developing, designing some projects.
Yeah.
Um, but we're still in design mode a little bit.
Yeah. Well, this is also a good time of the year in the timber because all the leaves are off the trees. You can see further through
100.
that timber right now than you
Yeah,
can any other time of the year. And man, we wouldn't be starting this early if we didn't have 7 miles of levee to build this year.
yeah, true. But you know what? Like, it's just foreign. We're different. Like, I know some people have some flooded timber in Illinois, but not very many, man. Like that's a
Mhm.
foreign concept to us. To have it, we're working on one flooded timber plot on actually a personal farm. It's not even
Uh-huh.
a client farm because I like to try it first because I hear you talk about it. I hear people talk about it, and it's awesome. Nobody does it here. I mean, the closest resemblance we have to that is like a little 10-acre opening in the timber where we plant corn. And it's like, that's not what you're talking about,
Right.
right?
Right.
So, uh, it's just different. I think it's cool, but it's different.
It, it's
But
it's pretty rare in northern Missouri too.
is it?
There's really not that many true green tree reservoirs. There's a lot of timber holes and there's a lot of lakes in the timber, but not not 100 acres of flooded pin oaks.
Yeah. Those
You
are
know, you
fun to
get
eat, those little acorns that drop.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's a lot more common in southeast Missouri and Arkansas and
Yeah.
Tennessee and you get further south and the landscape. I guess the landscape is built a little better for providing that kind of habitat.
Yeah.
Um, I've been working on a property in West Tennessee, and I got to go down there in January and hunt with those guys. And what was so cool is to see that there's 250 acres of tillable ground that they refuge and 350 acres of timber that they put water on. The ducks weren't in there for the acorns. They weren't in there for the hard mast. They were in there for the invertebrates. And in that late winter, early spring molt that the hen mallards have, that second molt, they're after the protein of the invertebrates. And the the leaves that are stacked on top of the ground in the timber are what provide the kind of the breeding habitat for the invertebrates. And so a lot of people always think, oh, you got to have pin oaks, you got to have pin oaks. Well, one of the reasons that we like pin oaks in the timber that we hunt for mallards is because the pin oak leaves don't break down as
Right.
easily as, let's say, elm or ash or maple or some of the softer wood, and so that provides a better habitat for those invertebrates.
Huh, well, that's so how big a property? All this stuff is just super fascinating. But like, so let's say my personal farm. Okay, it's only 120 acres. Like,
Uh-huh.
how big of a farm do you think you need to like incorporate all this? Like, do you have to have a big chunk of land, or if somebody bought 80 acres where you're at, would they be better off just throwing as much corn as they could, or is that big enough that they want a little diversity even on that small tract?
Yeah. So you don't need a big tract. I've got a property, just 20 minutes from where I live here, that is not in prime duck country, that has a 60-acre wetland pool. We got about 15 acres of flooded corn, um, and we've got about 20 acres of kind of shrub scrub, like shallow water. It's not pin oak timber. We got a little 5-acre block of big mature pin oaks, but that shrub scrub is where these birds are starting to use more and more. And it's taken 2 or 3 years for them to really,
Yeah.
start using it. But now they're there every time I go.
No,
There's always more ducks in the timber and in that shrub scrub than there is on the wetland pool or in the corn. And so you know we don't have 100 acres of y- you know surface water there, but we've got all that we're checking all the boxes. We've got moist soil habitat, we got
yeah,
corn, we've got milo, we've got big pin oak timber, we've got shrub scrub habitat that's and some more emergent wetland marsh looking stuff. So we've got 5 different habitat types on this
yeah,
one 300-acre farm. And all of it is, probably on 150 acres of it.
right.
So you don't need, you don't need 1,000 acres. You don't need 600 acres. You need the ability, or the landscape has to lend to it a little bit.
For sure.
You can't just grow a 40-foot pin oak tree in a couple of years.
Yeah,
So identifying the right site,
for
when
sure.
if you're looking to purchase, can really speed up that process.
For sure. Having a property that lends itself to some things that, like, like where we're at, it's like, oh, we want to put it in a wetland. It's like, well, look at that, because we can't just put it in anywhere you want. So I'm with you there. Uh-oh, you froze a little bit. You back?
Yeah.
Good. Um, so let's move on to another thing, because you brought up Milo. And last time we chatted, I'm like, or sorghum, it amazes me that in Illinois, I cannot get it to work. I cannot get birds to feed in sorghum. And you said that they love it where you're at. So I'm doing it again. We're putting in one, maybe two more plots of sorghum. So if it doesn't work, it's your fault. But it doesn't make sense to me that it doesn't. So we're actually putting two at Double Cluck, the hunt club that we own, on the closest to, like, we border a park, so we don't let people hunt close to it. So we have a couple
Mhm.
sanctuary plots. So we call them test plots, and every year we put something different. So we're putting at least one of those into sorghum to see how they go.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
so why wouldn't it work here?
Man, I don't know. It I don't know.
Weirdest thing.
Could be that they're getting everything they need from different food sources, and don't
Right.
necessarily need what they're going to get from Milo.
Gosh, it seems
Uh,
like such a good food source, though.
Elevations, water level. I mean,
What do you bring it up to? So like that. So like usually like that, the top of it that'll seed out what, like a foot above like the actual plant. Where do you
uh,
bring your water up to?
I like to keep it short. I
Oh,
like to keep the water short.
oh,
18 inches or less, because a lot of times blackbirds and other non-waterfowl birds are going to get on that milo stalk, and they're going to knock a lot of that stuff down into the water.
okay, I didn't know that. See,
And
the only time I've tried it, we brought it like right up to the seed.
mhm.
So you're
um,
talking, you're saying you keep it another foot or 18 inches below that?
so the water depth being
You-
foot to
Okay,
18 inches.
and
Now the
but that's
birds will
a
knock it down.
yeah, but that's a 3 4 foot crop, right?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
But, okay, well, I'll try that.
Well, and this too, as the season wears on, start the water shallow and bring it up as the season goes on. You don't want to set that buffet table too early.
Yeah.
Um, having it right up to the Milo head, right off the bat. Hey man, this baby's crying. Can
Oh,
can we
yes.
time, time out?
Let's pause, and we'll come right do it right back.
I'll be right back.
Okay, cool. All right, so we're back. Jody had to deal with a crying baby for a minute there, but we can move on from the sorghum. I'm going to try it out, and I'll let you know how it goes in the fall. But that leads me to like seed, and that is something that we're doing right now, finalizing it kind of as we speak, which is kind of March, but we've been doing it the last couple weeks. Um, we're finalizing where we're putting what,
Mhm.
and kind of like going off of the audits that we talked about last year. Like last year, we were forced to plant more small grain seed that we like, more millet, more buckwheat, just because we couldn't get in a bunch of corn. But that did show us some stuff that like we got birds to wetlands that we'd never had early. I mean, we had the first 2 weeks were incredible. So we're using that data, kind of designing a plan and narrowing down how much seed we need, and we'll probably get it ordered like in the next week, something like that. You guys doing the same?
Yeah, yeah. So, doing a lot of soil testing and trying to identify, where we're going to put stuff,
Yeah.
how many acres we're going to put in, and just trying to pin stuff down. We're in the same boat, man. Trying to
Yeah.
pin everything down and make sure we got what we need, so when it's go time, we're ready to rock and roll.
Well, here's what that's part of it for us, but here's what we run into here, and I don't know if it's the same thing with you. Like, if we wait until the last minute to order, so like last year is a perfect example. We had a couple guys that wanted us to put in wetlands late, and nobody could get in corn, so everyone's panicking and buying all the millet they can, and we had to scramble to get millet. Like you just couldn't go into a store and buy it.
Yeah.
Couldn't get it shipped here, so we had to like pull some strings to get it. So same thing with like short season corn.
Hmm.
You can get all the short season corn you want now, but if you wait until it's too late and when everybody wants it,
Yeah.
it's not so easy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's why we're
Hard to
doing it
find.
now. Yes. Um, what we don't do, and I don't know if you guys do it there, you might. Do you ever like fly over a bunch of millet?
Uh, Man, we haven't. I haven't personally flown in any. Now I know that that's a pretty common practice. We've got a solid enough bottom that we usually just mud it in.
Okay.
The muddier the better. Getting in there. Oh,
So how big of patches are you guys like mudding in? Like you're talking timber, right? You're just walking in and broadcasting, or what?
um, mostly where I put Jat millet is usually in wetland pools, WRP
Okay.
tracks, and maybe some of the bar areas that start drying out in July, and some of those lower elevations. Um, Millet takes wet or likes wet feet, and so it takes water really well. So in those really low elevations, all you got to do is get it up a foot, and you can put
Yeah.
6 inches of water on it, and
Yep.
you can kind of follow it up as the summer progresses there. But I don't fly any in. I'm usually a muddy mess the month of July
Yeah.
whenever we're putting it in. But
I,
I put in, I don't know, a pallet last year and ran out. Could have used two,
yeah.
because we were in the same boat. We didn't plant a whole lot of corn last year, and had to kind of diversify. Had to steer away from our normal plan, and so this year I'm ordering two pallets, and
Good move.
going back with a golden millet.
Yeah.
Dane Slade out of Texas. He's just now sending out pre-order forms, and anyway, I'm really impressed with that stuff.
Really?
Big heads, and unlike jet millet, golden millet will come back each year. And sometimes if you have a real nice stand of wild millet or Japanese millet,
Yeah.
you'll see a little bit of it next year.
Yeah. You'll get a little volunteer.
Not
Yeah.
this stuff. It's like you
Oh,
planted it all over again. If the
yeah.
ducks don't eat it all, it's gonna come back up.
No kidding.
And so I'm really excited about that.
Well,
Because
I will have to when we get into when do you guys plant that? Like June there?
it's gonna be July probably.
July? Okay.
If we do it much earlier, in August and September, we can get a heavy rain, blackbirds move in, knock the stuff on the ground, and it could regerm. So I like to wait a little longer until I can start putting water
Okay.
on, so it's falling into the water and not having the opportunity to germinate again.
Yeah, for sure. Well, when we get to that time, you'll have to get some video of that because we're pretty unfamiliar with that stuff too.
Okay.
Like it is Japanese millet here or nothing if you're doing millet.
Mhm.
So I see all that stuff. That's just kind of like what people have done here. So we've kind of adopted that. So, but I'm curious to try some of this stuff to see if it, to see if it works here. So when we get to that point, you'll have to send us some video on what that
Sure.
looks like and how it does. Um, Burning. You're starting to burn, or you're planning to burn.
Yesterday we burned about 6 miles of levee.
Okay. Well, that's officially March though, so that's next. But we can talk about
Yeah,
that.
yeah. We I picked up a contract for a local levee district to help them get 26 miles of levee burnt.
Okay.
It's 300 acres, which isn't that big of a deal unless it's 26 miles long. And
Sure.
so we we burned a few miles last night of the levee. Today it was too windy. Tomorrow is going to be perfect conditions.
Yeah.
I'm looking for anything that has less than 10 mile an hour wind and below 50% relative humidity, but above 25.
Yeah.
Today it was 35-mile an hour winds and 25% humidity.
Gosh, you guys must be drier than we are because we're still really wet. I mean,
Well,
today might have helped a little bit with the wind, but man, it's still real soft, real wet.
yeah.
Huh. Uh,
It's wet. Don't get me wrong. It's wet, and we're pushing the envelope.
right. Well, luckily, my farm manager does most of the burning for me, so I don't have to I tell him, out of sight, out of mind. I don't want to I hate that with a passion. I did too much of it growing up, and too many went wrong. So
Yeah.
he does that on my small farm. We usually do it once every 3 or 4 years. And so I know that usually, like at our big farms, our big clients will rotate stuff. And I
Mhm.
get a 3 or 4 year plan, and but man, mine is so small that I just burn it all, and 2 or 3 years later, I'll do it again. So
Uh-huh.
yeah. Ah, do you
Yeah.
like that stuff, or do you?
Man, I'm chomping at the bit. I I've
So
gotta
fun.
I've gotta hold off a little bit here. I brush hog down the rest of my deer plot corn.
Yeah,
And anyway, there's a bunch of corn on the ground still. Um,
that's
and
good.
and I'm holding off. I'm gonna wait until a couple weeks before turkey season before I go in and disc it. And whenever I disc it, I'm gonna go ahead and disc my fire lines in. I mowed them this winter,
Yeah,
and I'll burn right before turkey season. Turkeys love stuff that's just been burned.
just burn, just
Love
greening
it,
up. I
love
know.
it. And so anyway, that man, that's how I try to draw turkeys in, from the neighbors. There's transient birds just like we have transient bucks.
Yeah.
Some of those turkeys are just bouncing around, and so they find something they like, and you're drawing hens to that freshly burnt stuff. And you can pick them up pretty easy. It's almost like they can smell it or they can see the smoke. They just
They
like
do
start
dig it.
coming.
Yes. Yeah, we've had that same. I don't get too much into turkey hunting. I used to, but they do seem to dig it. A lot of stuff like that fresh burned stuff.
Mhm.
And you get to find some sheds, usually.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you
We
find
just
any
started
today?
finding a few. Have you seen any?
No, you know what? Pewter does most of that. I mean, I can't believe you have the time. Like I have the 3-year-old twins. I haven't been deer hunting in 7 years, man.
Yeah,
I'll get back into it at some point, but I don't have the time yet. But
yeah.
no, he's Pudic and Matt, my two deer guys. Um, we just did the whitetail series yesterday, 2 days
Uh-huh,
ago,
uh-huh.
and for whatever reason, they both like to stay out of the timber a little longer.
Yeah,
They're both running those link systems, the
uh-huh.
trail, so they know when they're dropping, and for the most part, they're saying a lot of them are still carrying here.
We are too.
Yeah,
I saw a couple bucks just yesterday. They're still
yeah.
carrying.
So they're like they don't want to get in there and screw anything up until they have to,
Right.
or until they know that like one of the ones they're after is down and they're
Drops.
going to get
Right.
it. But getting off track. Um, Burning Euro tracks around. I'm still developed. Are you completely dry? Have you drawn down everything?
The only thing I've drawn down so far are the places that we're working on, that we
Working
have
on.
construction like planned for the spring. Uh, Wetland pools, where I'm planting, even where I'm planting food plot corn. If I'm not doing production corn in a pool, I'm not drawing down until May.
Really?
Yeah,
Man.
because like with our soil types, we have to get heat in order to help dry it out,
Yeah.
and so we can drop the water out now, and it's still not going to dry out good enough until the 1st of June. And so I'm holding that water so I can get a better moist soil response. I mean, if I drop the water now, I'm going to get cockleburs and some smartweed and some bunch of other crap that I don't want. If
Yeah.
I wait until May and draw down, I'm getting Pennsylvania smartweed and wild millet, and then I'm going to go plant corn, right through it.
Yeah, that's
And
crazy. That's cool. That's just a different soil type because I mean, that makes 100% sense. But here where we're at, we draw down. I want it empty by April,
uh
middle of April, because I don't care if I plant it then, but the first good window that we get, and I'm talking like a 1 or 2 day window. I'm not talking like a month window
uh
because sometimes those wetlands, like we don't, if you miss one, you missed it all. And for the most part, those things can tolerate, if you get it, let's say you plant it and a couple of weeks later you get a good rain and it's underwater a couple inches for a day, they can tolerate that stuff for the most part here. But if we wouldn't have planted, we couldn't plant, for another
right,
month after that rain.
yeah,
So ours is just different, but that's cool. That's how it works there. But we nuke everything. We disc it, spray it. So when we're and some of those we'll even bring in like the roto tiller, those tillers
uh-huh,
to bring it up. So it is dry, clean stuff, and we'll just row in corn. And if we miss our window, sometimes we're screwed. Like last year, there was a few windows that people did get in corn,
hmm,
but those that missed those small ones, there were so we had it was probably a day window, and I bet of our I think we have let's say on my farms we have 100 acres of food plots, 90. We probably only got in 30 of corn just because we ran out of time, and the next day that window was closed.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I'm pulling mine down now.
uh-huh,
I have a video. I wish you could see it. That's the downside of the software is you can't see the video that I'm playing. But we're probably only down. So most of my wetlands are like 3 feet or lower,
hmm,
4 feet tops, and I've dropped them about 50%.
yeah,
So we're probably, you know, 18 inches, somewhere in
yeah,
that range.
yeah,
Gosh, it's like we're holding not a ton of birds, but they're always right on that shoreline. They're getting stuff that they couldn't have got 2 weeks ago. And the geese too. Like we're actually this little video, we're holding fewer birds than we usually do. I mean, but again, we get everything. We get specks, snows,
hmm,
ducks, Canadians. And the day before I shot this, we had thousands and thousands and literally maybe 5,000 birds there. They seem to like that drawdown. So we more and more we're doing it slower and slower than we usually do.
hmm,
I like like you're saying you have those 24-inch outlets. We have some of those too for those big rains that we want to dry it quickly. But now when it's not super like, you know, we're not doing it to plant corn tomorrow. We're doing it to like
right,
feed these ducks a little bit.
uh-huh,
We're doing it more than we used to because they seem to dig those shallows. When you keep changing it, man, they stick around until it's dry.
yeah.
So you won't start. So when will you slowly draw yours down, or will you get all the way to May and then just pull the plug?
It depends. It takes me a couple of years to really put my finger on the pulse of a wetland. Once I get it pinned down and I've got a good idea of how it functions and how it reacts, some pools I'll drop the water out quick whenever I see a window or like a 5 or 6 day stretch where we're going to have mid 80s.
Yeah.
Um, Drop the water out quick so I expose more mud flats at the same time. With that heat, we'll see more millet germinate. And
Okay.
so when I see that coming, sometimes I'll drop it out quick. But a lot of times it's a slow drawdown. Try to do it an inch a day. The only thing that I have
And,
drawn down,
yeah.
the things that I have drawn down, I lied to you earlier. I started pulling water off of our timber pools this week
Okay.
because of the warmer temperatures. Uh, I I don't want to do that whenever um, the temperature is fluctuating and we get some really cold weather. It's hard on the trees. So I wait for things to moderate a little bit and then start drawing that water down. But
Yeah.
man, there were thousands of mallards and pin
Really?
oaks the other day. Whenever I went in there to start pulling, I'm like, man, I hate to do this to them,
Uh,
but
ducks and timber for whatever reason, like,
the right time.
uh, um, okay. I think the only thing we've covered. What am I missing? Then we have development. You had tracks on the ground. We're ordering seed, fires, um, drawing down stuff. What else?
Yeah, so drawing down stuff. Are you fighting any beavers over there?
Oh, dude. Yeah. So we typically, so most of our stuff, most of the wetlands that we designed and built, we use agri drains, right?
Uh huh.
Similar to the stuff that you designed. So most of it is subsurface. So we usually don't fight beavers until like the last, you know, 25%. Um, and then it's all out war. Like truly,
Uh-huh.
they're the
Uh,
worst. We have a few at Double Cluck that are like they're not tiled; they're just ditches, and they'll plug those things up every night. But we already have one that somehow has blocked our agri drain like 3 foot underwater.
uh-huh.
So I don't even actually know how to. We'll probably just have to pump it dry because some of those make me nervous, man. Like you go down there and fix it, and it's a I don't know what it's 18 inches, and
Uh-huh.
you get that baby free, and that suction is strong, man. Like I wouldn't want to be underwater when I fix that.
Yeah.
So I don't know how we'll fix that one, but
Yeah.
they're the worst. I know that.
Um,
You guys fighting those already?
yeah, yeah. Man, it's a battle every year, but it seems like this year, uh, there's there's more of them around. I don't know if it's because of all the flooding and stuff last year.
Yeah,
I had a lot of them in wetlands. I've got trappers that come out. We caught 9 beavers out of a 35-acre lake. I mean, a 35-acre wetland pool. It's just crazy how many of them are around. But
yikes!
it's every morning. Like they will clog them up every night.
I
And
know.
so first thing in the morning, that's what we do. We get after the beaver dams and try to get them busted open so we can drain all day because we
Yeah,
know we're gonna get hung up again, tonight and
yeah.
go back down there and do it all over again tomorrow.
You should put up one of us should put up a trail camera and get those little bastards building there. And every day, like it's bigger and stronger. Like in the ditches we have, it starts pretty small, but by like literally by when we want it dry, they're 12 foot front to back. It's
Yeah,
unreal.
yeah,
I need to put
yeah.
a little trail camera there.
I got a 60-foot stretch right now. They're across the ditch, or it's a big, wide, old borrow ditch, and they're 60 feet across it
Oh, and they
and
do it every night.
every night. Well, and we're not busting the whole thing open. We're just
Little
each
chunk.
each night,
Yeah,
or each morning getting like 10 feet of it busted out.
yeah.
And
You'd think you'd like break their spirit, but you never do.
no, I will set up a trail camera tomorrow
That would be awesome.
on that spot, and we'll catch him. We'll catch him in action there.
So do you trap? Do you trap or do you have guys trap?
I don't trap.
I don't trap
I'm
either.
no good at it.
Yeah,
Our local conservation agent Clay is a predator, man.
yeah,
He's really good, and
mm,
season's over, so uh, it takes a nuisance permit,
yeah,
and the trappers that I used to have always used to have to call him to get the nuisance permit. And anyway, he called me one day. He's like, "Hey man, why why do you why are we always giving you guys nuisance permits?" It's like, "Well, I'm trying to get water off." He's like, "Oh, you're a duck hunter." I was like, "Yeah."
yes.
He's like he's like let me come down and help you. And so
No
he's
way.
been trapping for me for like the last 8 years, and he's
Ah,
really good. Um, and isn't afraid. Isn't afraid to get after it, and especially after season's over, come and help me,
uh-oh.
which is absolutely
Yeah.
key.
Oh, yes. We struggle a little bit because I don't know. Again, you have much bigger properties with different areas to hunt. Ours are fairly confined, and I always worry about dogs stepping on those traps. So I usually wait until at least duck season's over. So we have a small window. So it's like the end of duck season until the end of trapping season, and we do okay. Like I think we caught two beavers. This is just on mine. This is not double cluck. Caught two beavers, an otter, um, a mink, which we don't get very many mink.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then on one 8 acre wetland, 7 or 8, we caught 97.
Muskrats.
Yes, they're everywhere. 97.
That is ridiculous.
Uh, but yeah, so trap if you don't, because that makes your life easier. Like we patch up. That's what we'll do. Like probably April, we'll just come smooth our levees out.
Yeah.
We build them big enough, wide enough that it's usually not an issue. But if you don't patch them up every couple of years, it becomes one. So
Yeah.
we try to stay ahead of that.
Yeah.
One other thing I had happen this year that I've never had happen, when you have new projects, I failed this year at like marking where I put stuff. So we ran power to a new wetland, and I forgot that we had an ice heater out there. So when I lowered it, I lowered the water and I had the ice heater going.
It
And
was, it was yeah. Did
so,
did the muskrats get to the cord?
well, I don't think it was that. Well, maybe. I think it was either it has a kill switch when it's out of water, or it just burnt up the motor because it was 2 feet out of the water and it's not starting.
Yeah.
So $1,000 lesson learned the hard way. So
Yeah.
next year we're definitely going to mark like where everywhere because we're spread out a little bit. Different properties. We'll
Sure.
mark where we put that stuff.
Yeah.
But that was for the most part. That's it for us this month. Missing anything?
Man, I don't think so.
Oh, I know what else. We're talking about you're putting in a couple pits. And this isn't a long conversation. I know we're going on 40, 45 minutes. We try to keep them
Wow.
fairly short, which we
Yeah.
fail at every time. But you're putting in a couple pits, right?
Yeah, we got a couple to move, and I'm hoping I can get one moved this weekend. Just always fine tuning,
Yeah.
and we got a couple on order, and just trying to get a little jump on it, especially in those places we're going to be planting corn. Try to
Yeah.
get those pits in before the corn goes in, and give them a chance to get some vegetation around them before season.
Yep.
And
So we're
it's
doing.
always the biggest challenge.
Yep. And you'll be scrambling last minute. You always are, but the more you can do earlier, and we're doing that, and we're also like again, we're one of ours is a hunt club. It's a little different, but like some of the blinds that we have that people really enjoy, and we kill a lot of ducks. We're talking about like expanding them. So a few of them are only 4-person pits. So we're like, how
Uh,
can we make those blinds? How could we make those 6? So if they want to bring 2 or 3 guests each, it's not a big deal.
yeah,
Or if that's where they're killing ducks, like let's load it up, right? Like,
yeah,
let's have 8 people in there, or whatever it is. So that's what we're going over now, and we're not doing it now, but we'll probably do it when the weather breaks a little bit.
yeah. So what kind of pits you putting in?
Well, let me ask you about that in a second. I'll tell you what I'm putting in. So the subsurface pits we're putting in are Bradley blinds.
Uh huh.
And have you seen those before?
Yep, yep. I put a few in.
So we have on mine we have 4 20-foot Bradleys, and they're awesome. They're huge,
Uh huh.
huge. But the battle that we're having with those is if you don't put them in the spring and then backfill around them and give that dirt time to settle, we can't keep them under. We can't keep them from popping up.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's happened 2 or 3 years in a row where we'll put them in. So this year, I literally set it back down, and it was in the fall, so we didn't have time to backfill around it. But I had 6 2,000-pound concrete blocks, all tied to each other, all tied to the pit, and it didn't pop up, but it bumped up about a foot,
Hmm.
which is enough to like aggravate you.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So this year we're gonna go back in the spring, and as long as we do it in the spring and give enough backfill around them, typically they're good.
uh,
So that's what we're using for pits. They're pricey, but they last forever. They're awesome.
right.
For we're just you frozen again?
Yeah, yeah. Froze there for a second in here. You said
Yeah. What are you? So you've used one Bradley. What do you usually use?
I've installed several Bradleys in the past, but
Okay.
man, a few years ago, I kind of got together with these guys at Concealed Comfort, and
Oh man.
they are producing a really nice pit. Like I built my own pits. I've had guys fabricate them. I've installed every kind of pit that's on the market, and these guys have nailed it. Like from the design to the construction to all the all the little things that you wish you had in a pit blind,
Yeah.
like like somebody doing the engineering work to make sure that they don't pop out of the ground. Um, the wings that they put on them are specifically sized for the size of the pit, so
Yeah.
you don't have to worry about them popping out. But uh, Chris has been really good to work with down there. They're south of St. Louis a little ways, and
Chris is the Concealed Comfort guy.
yeah.
Chris is
Uh,
also the Bradley Blinds guy.
oh yeah.
Yeah, he's one of my boys, so I can't talk about Concealed Comfort.
Hey man, I get it. I
Actually,
get it.
my neighbor shoots Concealed Comfort, and he loves them. I
Uh-huh.
just dude, those Bradleys are. I've only hunted one Concealed Comfort. I think it was one of their older models. But gosh, the Bradleys are just so wide. Like again, usually when I'm hunting, I have like my kids with me,
Sure.
and like it's wide, roomy, and that's half the
Yeah.
battle for me.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so one, and we don't have to talk about this now, but one question to think about. One of the projects I'd like to do in the fall or well in the summer, I want to build a huge s- subsurface pit. So like sometimes like my wife wants to go, or like
Uh-huh.
so I want like a subsurface room. Like I'm talking like a 20 by 20, something like that. But the catch is that it's under the water table. So I don't know what I'd use.
Oh man.
You think about it. You don't have to tell me now because like I'm thinking like formed walls. I'm thinking blocks. I'm thinking have Bradley Blinds custom fabricate something, but I don't want it to pop. Like I don't want that to ever happen. So I'm like taking my time to try to figure out how to make that happen because right now it's I get like an hour, maybe 2 hours with my 7-year-old. So I need some entertainment down there for him.
Right. Yeah.
So you think that through and we'll go over it next time.
Yeah, that's gonna be a challenge, bud.
I know. I'm not even sure it's possible, but I'd like to do something. And maybe it'll be we have one that's like in a big brushy area. We don't shoot geese, but we shoot a ton of ducks. So I might just build like a big room in there and just load it with cover. But it'd be cool if I could shoot both out of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So you start thinking.
I You got my wheels turning already here.
Nice. Nice. Okay. Well, I'm sure we're missing something, but we're gonna skip it because we're going on an hour here. So that will do it. That covers February. We're already into March a little bit, so we might double up on some of the stuff we talked about a little bit. But let's try to do it in like what 3 weeks from now ish.
Yeah. Yeah, sounds great.
Okay, well, cool. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back at you guys in about a month or so.
All right, John. Take care, bud.